you join me in a really unusual car which I haven't seen in good condition for a very long time. Yeah, it's a 1985 Honda CRX. Wow! A little while ago I got to drive a Honda Civic Del Sol, which I really enjoyed. It wasn't a really sporty sports car, but it was quite a fun little coupe thing. But today I get to drive something which is where that car came from, its predecessor, the Civic Renaissance Experimental, or CRX as I think you probably know it as. Now this is a Series 1, Mark 1 if you like, or pre-facelift CRX. The front of the car, in fact the entire exterior of the car was completely unique to the CRX. Very angular, very small, very different frankly. There are lots of elements of Civic in this car from the 80s of course, because it's very closely related to the Civic. And in America they had different headlights for the early cars, and they got in 1986 a more aerodynamic lamp unit, but we had that aerodynamic lamp unit already in Europe and Japan. But it's really windy out here, so I'm going to climb in the car and tell you all about it from the driver's seat. And the wind is absolutely ridiculous today, so I'm just sitting inside the car just to tell you a few facts and figures while I show you some pictures of the outside of the car. And it's a great looking little thing, isn't it? The original CRX ran from 1983 to 1991, when it was replaced by the Del Sol. It was released in 1983 for the 84 season and had revisions in 1985 and 1986 before being heavily redesigned in 1987 and then facelifted again in 1988. Apparently the inspiration came from the designer's own Alfa Junior Zagato. Why do car designers always seem to have Alfa Romeos? Squint and the proportions are very similar, like a Lego version with all the sharp angles and square lines. Under the skin it's basically a Honda Ballade or Triumph Acclaim in the UK. In Japan it was actually called the Ballade Sports CRX, or Ballade if you prefer. It's only 3.67 metres long and 1.62 metres wide, which is small. It's 2 centimetres narrower and 40 centimetres shorter than the Ballade / Acclaim. There's some really clever little bits of design. Check out this way this back window looks flat but actually curves in at the front, so you've got an air vent to give some fresh air through into the cabin. There's a lot going on to keep the car aerodynamic and flush, like these indented, tucked-in door handles. If you look at the angles and the straight lines in this car, there's a lot of Rover going on in here. The R8 from the obviously the mid-80s, the ST3 before it. There are 3 angles here on this bit of metalwork. First of all, it comes out here, about 45 degrees, slopes off a bit less, and then slopes off almost to vertical, but not quite. Exactly the same profile, almost, as a Rover 200, which I find fascinating. I also really like this little red insert line running around the side of the car as well. And although the panels are all unique, it does share a few components with other Hondas. If you look at the little corner side lights, those are actually from a Concerto. Even the alloys are square in the design. In fact, the only thing apart from the tyres that's round on this car are the side repeaters. Now, just look at these seats. They look like tweed, but they're actually velour. This is the absolute best of both worlds. This is possibly the best seats I've ever sat in. The look of tweed, but the comfort of velour and the warmth of velour, and they're so encompassing, so cosseting, so gripping. The bucket arms just hold your sides perfectly, and the headrest is just nice. They also recline easily with just a simple spring-loaded flicky thing. So if you want to just take a nap, you can. If you're alert to drive, you can. Oh, these seats are great. They're comfy and supportive, and there's everything right here. This is brilliant. Not as good as the ones in the back, of course, which are lightly padded vinyl, which are, yeah, that police car spec. Like the exterior, the interior is unique to this car. There are lots of Honda parts being components, but the dashboard, the seats, just everything is all just CRX only in most respects. It's a nice sized cabin, even though the car is absolutely tiny. The cabin itself feels quite big and roomy because the doors are thin, the A posts are thin, the B posts are way behind you. You've got decent headroom, even though there's an electric tilt slide sunroof in this car which kind of pops out of the roof and then goes backwards. It's all away from you somehow. Even the dashboard is pushed way back, so you've got this weird kind of sloping, well, it's not really, I'm going to call it T-shelf, but it's not, because look at the angle on that. You can't shelf that T there. A big old little pocket for putting stuff. If you had a small cup, you could put it in here. This is another 1980s T-shelf fail, I'm afraid, though. This is an awkward shape. People have said you can use a flask with a little cup, but even a flask cup would struggle to fit into this little central cubby here, though. So, T-shelf fail, I'm afraid, on the part of the CRX. Now, bear in mind, this is aimed kind of at a commuter car. There are probably going to be cups going around it, so a bit of an oversight there. Right, let's have a look around this thing. The door, everything, the seats, the carpet, apart from the roof, is blue. It's like I had a Mark 1 MR2 that was like this as well. Everything you touched was blue, almost. In fact, the MR2 had a blue steering wheel. This has only got a black rubbery steering wheel, very rubbery actually, and so is the gear knob, very rubbery as well. Big blue door card, kind of mad, beautiful bit of design, sweeping from behind your back into the panels in the rear. There's like a stripe which goes up, sweeps through the door controls, into the dash vents, across the centre of the dash, and then into the door. So it's like a complete band of these little kind of indented stripes that completely surround you and enclose you. It's a lovely bit of cohesive design that brings the entire interior together, makes it feel as one thing. The door is not massively advanced. You've got locking on that door and locking on that door, not central. Got a crazy little diagonal door handle, which is cool in like a metal-y chrome thing. There's a carpeted speaker grille here, hiding the speaker quite well actually, making it look like just a carpeted panel, which is what backs onto the manual keep fit window. Little door grab handle, and there should be a door pocket on here. It comes with the car, but it's been taken, or was loose, so it's been taken off for repair and fixing and cleaning and stuff. This car literally arrived in stock at the dealer yesterday, and he's only, well, not even started cleaning it yet, so I'm like the first person to sit in it since it arrived. I'm very excited. Up here, you've got a little vent blowing onto the window to get your windows demisted, and a little vent that you can swivel around to blow onto your face. And here we've got a remote, not electric, but manual remote door mirrors, and you've got the same on the passenger side as well. So if you lean across, you can twiddle your mirror. In the centre, we've got this, as I mentioned, this big stripe wrapping around you on the vertical plane, and then you've got a couple of little vents for the centre of the car, one more for the passenger, and a little digital clock, which does it do the thing like in the Acclaim? Yes, it does. Car's turned off, push it, and the light comes on. This is the clock from the Acclaim. Big cubby hole I just mentioned. You can put, I don't know, pens and stuff in there. Not cups though, sadly. And in the centre below that, we've got an auto reverse radio cassette by the National brand. I don't know if this is the original radio that came with this car, but certainly it's the right era. So it's possible it's the original or a dealer fit. Who knows? Looks very, very 80s and square though, matches the lines of the car perfectly. Angles are a theme in this vehicle. Little tiny ashtray which slides out. Oh, that's so cool. As you slide it out, there's a little metal hingey bit which you push to remove it. It pops out as you do that. That's cool. Looks like it's never been used, thankfully. And a lighter socket which has never been used either by the look of it. 12 volts for your sat nav or your phone charger. Very useful indeed. And let's get back to the business at hand of the stuff in front of the driver. Now, the steering wheel, pre-airbag of course, so it's quite slender, quite slim, quite angular. Little horn test. Noddy sports car, I like this, this is cool. And the dials, these look like Rover R8 dials, but in orange. Oh, this is exciting. Orange Rover R8 dials is the sportiest, most clear thing I've ever seen. Oh, this is great. This car's only done 34,000 miles, can you believe it? I mean, looking at the condition, yes I can. So yeah, you've got a rev counter on the left, sweeping up to red line at 6.5, and you've got your speedo on the right, going up to 140. I don't think this non-VTEC version will go that fast. Then a heat gauge and a fuel gauge on the left and right. All in this nice little trapezoidal thing. Looks like the pyramid stage at Glastonbury, to be honest, as you peer through the steering wheel to see that. Oh, I keep thinking the door's going to blow into the camera and knock the camera over. I'm quite nervous. That's why I'm talking fast. Then you've got this little sliding hazard light switch, same as you found on the Ballard and the Acclaim, because this is a Ballard underneath. Stalks from a Rover R8, except reversed. So the wipers are on the left, and the lights and indicators are on the right. On the far right, and actually in the same place as you find on a Rover R8, if you've got an electric sunroof or a convertible, the switch for the roof. Let's push it. It's a double click button, so first button raises it a tiny bit, second click winds it all the way back. Oh, that's cool. And then push it to close. That's very efficient for a 35-year-old car. That's impressive. Now we've got some cool little lights I didn't mention a second ago in the instrument display. Obviously we've got the usual ones, water, battery, temperature, park brake, boot open, and they're all just nice little squares with a little pictogram inside. But the one which is very exciting, because this car had the EFI fitted for the first time, let's see if it'll come on with, yes, PGM-FI. It flashes to alert you that the fuel injection is warming up, getting ready to fire the car into life. I've not seen that light on a Honda before, because I haven't driven a huge number of 80s Hondas, weirdly. So yeah, that's quite cool to find. Jumping back a second, I'm a bit sporadic today. a push button fog light switch, very roverish, and then your heater controls, off 1, 2, 3, on a little kind of old fashioned, like a radio hi-fi switch, like a rocker slider switch thing. That's quite fun. And these little silver push buttons, which Japanese cars always seem to have back in the 80s to control the direction and recirc. They're fun, and a slider for hot and cold. And that's kind of it. You've got a glove box over here, no door pocket on the passenger door. They've got 5-speed manual box. Yeah. If you've sat in a Rover R8 before, I think possibly even in the SD3 before it as well, you'll be familiar with these two controls. Here's the bonnet release down here by your right foot, and here is the remote release for the boot and the fuel filler. This is exactly the same component, which was still being manufactured like 10 or plus years later after this car came out. Certainly until the bubble-shaped Rover 200 came out. I don't remember if they still use that in the bubble. They may have done, I can't remember. And of course you've got your madly positioned grab handle here on the A-post for the passenger, so when you're hurtling into a corner very fast indeed, your passenger can cling on for dear life just there. The back end is quite interesting. Let's have a look at that. Now this ducktail spoiler was new for 1985. I thought it was only on the SI trim models. This is an I, but that's maybe American spec. The boot is actually enormous because this car is technically a 2-seater. So you look in here and it's just a big boot, and then you've got a flat area which is a tiny bit lower in front of it. And that's because they've turned it into, well, I say 2+2, it's not really 2+ anything. You pull this up, you put up this flat area here, and suddenly you've got like a little kind of vinyl trough seat. It's like the back of a police car. So if you've got a couple of kids or someone you don't really care about, because there's no seat belts in the back here, you could put them in the back here at a pinch for a short journey. Headroom will be absolutely atrocious, and as I say, there's no seat belts. You have got 2 more speakers here in the back behind the wire metal grills, which kind of merge into the body shape. There's a courtesy light in the corner, and under the floor in the back, you've got a full-size alloy spare wheel. The jack and everything else look absolutely untouched under here. Amazing. Here under the bonnet is a 99 horsepower 12 valve, that's 3 valves per cylinder, 1.5 litre 4-cylinder, which in 1985, so I guess this is the first year for this, gained this PGFM FI, programmed fuel injection. So basically it's got electronic fuel injection on this car for the first time, which meant it got 99 horsepower now, I think up from 92 if I'm right. It's so little and so neat, the tiny battery there. I love all the Japanese labels. I think that I do love a Japanese car. It just feels like you're driving something so exotic, so different. It's just a car ultimately, it's only a Honda. Oh, check the Selmar system alarm, the siren. This someone was clearly keen on not losing this car back in the 80s. Right, so it's a Japanese car, so the indicators are on the right hand side. Must not forget that as we drive off. The thing, it's not massively powerful, I think it's 99 horsepower, but it really is sprightly because it only weighs 900 kilos. And the engine is just really willing to rev. It's lovely. Such a happy little car, I love it. Already I love it. Being a Series 1 car, it's got fairly basic suspension. Torsion beam front suspension, a beam axle and trailing arms on the back. The Series 2 cars were quite a lot more advanced, with double wishbones all round, giving full independent suspension. And because it's only got 13-inch wheels, the tyres are really tall, so generally it's quite a soft, bouncy ride. Although it was kind of a sports coupe back in the 80s, by today's standards it's very much more of a comfortable kind of a ride. This car is currently for sale at Stone Cold Classics in Rootham in Kent. Please check out the link in the description below to see it and other incredible stock. Now, forward visibility is very good. You've got a huge windscreen kind of wrapping over you, big side windows that go way past your shoulders, so you can see out really well. The back is a little limited. Windscreen wiping because I'm forgetting it's a right-hand indicator. The rear is a little limited because it's got the big whale tail that came in, I think, 1985 for the SI models. So that kind of cuts into quite a lot of the rearward visibility, so reversing would be a bit trickier. It's got a lovely Honda gear shift, so it's nice and snicky and smooth and accurate. No question going into the right gear or not. Now, a bit of a hold up over there, so I'm going to pause and move my GoPros around while some people have a discussion in the street. So on the move, the steering wheel is lovely, light, superbly direct, but at low speeds, it doesn't feel like it's got power assistance. I haven't checked under the bonnet yet, so I'm filming this in the wrong order, so I don't fully know the spec of this car. I'm going to say it hasn't got power steering because it feels beautifully direct and very much like a car that you're just connected to instantly, almost telepathically, apart from the indicator location, which I'm now learning. Gear shift is wonderful. To modern eyes, the suspension is very, or to a modern bum, if you like, the suspension is very soft. This car feels so small, so I just had a change of track from the suspension being really soft on these bouncy roads to this car is so tiny. You absolutely feel like you're in the smallest thing in the world. Now, there are a number of power plants through the car's run of production. There's a 1.3, a couple of 1.5s and a 1.6. This, I believe, has got a 1.5 litre all aluminium 12 valve 4-cylinder non-VTEC, making 99 horsepower. The bigger engine VTEC was good for about 146, so almost like 50% more oomph. Now, take these figures with a certain grain of salt. Finding accurate specs for this car are actually surprisingly hard, because most of the information you come across refers to American market vehicles rather than UK or European. But if that information I found is correct, that means it's good for 126 Newton meters of torque and 0 to 60 of 10.4 seconds. It's not got breathtaking, earth-shattering performance, so 0 to 60 in over 10 seconds isn't going to win any medals, but it does it in a way that makes it an awful lot of fun. In many ways, it is a spiritual predecessor to the CRX, the Del Sol, in that it's not massively quick. But it is a lot of fun. So you can have an absolute hoot on your daily commute without breaking too many speed limits or getting yourself into too much trouble. Handling is very much of an understeering nature rather than oversteering. It's front-wheel drive, of course, fairly competent chassis. This is really kind of a fun thing for me, filling in the gaps, if you like. Having driven the Del Sol that replaced it, and the Acclaim, which is kind of where it's come from in a way, because look, a Delica, Mitsubishi Delica. I wonder if Ian's watching this. This car does have one of those old-fashioned 80s style alarms. You've got to touch the tab on a certain hidden spot on the dashboard before it will start, which is a little bit annoying, but better than having the car stolen. So as I was saying, yeah. This is in Japan. This was the Ballard CRX, and of course the Honda Acclaim was based on the Ballard. So I've kind of driven the two cars that bookmarked to either side in a sort of way. The platform that became this was the Honda Ballard / Triumph Acclaim, and I've driven the Del Sol which replaced it. So it's quite fun to drive the thing in between. Having driven the Acclaim and also driven lots of Rover R8s, because I've got one and I've driven loads, it's really interesting seeing all the bits of, well, Rover R8 that are in this car. That's a really dumb place to do that. Sitting in the driver's seat, there's so much Rover R8 DNA in this car. And Acclaim. This little hazard light switch, straight from the Acclaim. These control stalks, straight from the Rover R8. The boot release and fuel cap release, straight from the Rover R8. I'm sure if I look around for longer, I will find more. Everything else though is unique. Everything body shell and trim wise that makes it a CRX though is unique to this car. Back in the 1980s, my dad's company actually sponsored a Honda CRX race series, well, one of the cars I guess in it, and so every now and then we got to go to Brands Hatch where there was a big sponsors tent with a big buffet laid on and, you know, freebies and stuff. We had a great time watching these things blast around the track, thinking they're the coolest cars in the world, for a good reason. They were some of the coolest little things ever. The weird little wedge styling, the sharp front, the cam back, that big glass area in the boot. Oh, it's all just so cool. On the road, it really does handle and drive a lot like a Civic. It's got the same light feeling, it's got the same solid build quality. So it's amazing how they've managed to do that, combine lightness and solidity in a way that doesn't often happen. Normally it's either heavy and Germanic or it's light and flimsy, but everything's just light to the touch. The brake pedal isn't hard to push, but they stop effectively. The clutch is nice and light. The gear change just flicks between ratios. And the steering is just so connected. And even though you're not actually going very fast, it feels like you're really flying along in the thing. If you're thinking of buying one of these cars, things you need to watch out for really tend mostly to be trim and rust. So common with many rarer 80s cars. Because it's so light, the suspension doesn't take much of a hammering, so that doesn't really wear out too much. And the seats and things are pretty hard wearing, but if something has broken, finding a spare replacement is going to be tricky. Oh, this car is the best. I really enjoy driving the CRX, which does feel so similar to this, but just a next generation on, more modern kind of a feel. Whereas this has got more of the 80s rawness to it. In many ways it does feel like an acclaimed sport, or sports acclaim if you like. But of course it's got the fuel injection, which makes it way more reliable and probably more efficient on fuel as well. It's just a great thing to zing through the gears. You get like 40 miles an hour in relatively quick time, and it feels like you're going rapidly at that point. You don't need to go a lot faster in this car, although if you lower the suspension, put on some bigger wheels, you absolutely could. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this ride out in the CRX today. It's been an absolute ball for me. I've loved every minute driving this car, and I wish the test drive could have gone an awful lot longer. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon in another video driving, frankly, who knows what. Take care, everybody.